A contractor showed up at a homeowner's door in Phoenix last summer, looked at a 7-year-old air conditioner that was blowing warm air, and quoted a full system replacement, $14,000. The homeowner asked if it could just be repaired. The contractor said no, the refrigerant is being banned, your system is obsolete, and you have to replace everything. That was a lie. And right now, versions of that conversation are happening in driveways all across the country. This video is about the EPA's refrigerant transition, what it actually says, and how a legitimate piece of environmental regulation is being used by some contractors, maybe not all of them intentionally, to push homeowners into full system replacements they don't need. If you have a residential air conditioner or heat pump that was installed before 2026, this directly affects you. And there is one thing I want you to hold on to before we get into the details. The law does not require you to replace a working system, but I'll tell you exactly when replacement does make financial sense, and that answer is more complicated than either side of this argument wants to admit. Here's what I want to cover. First, what the refrigerant phase-down actually is, in plain English, not the version contractors are selling you. Second, what it means in practice for a homeowner sitting on a 5 or 8-year-old system that's otherwise healthy. Third, the specific sales tactics you need to recognize before you sign anything. And fourth, the exact questions to ask that will tell you within about 2 minutes whether the person in your driveway is there to help you or to hit a quarterly number. Let's start with what actually happened. The EPA, under a 2020 law called the American Innovation and Manufacturing Act, the AIM Act, is executing a phased reduction of hydrofluorocarbons to reduce U.S. greenhouse gas emissions by 85% by 2036. The refrigerant in virtually every residential air conditioner installed over the last 2 decades is called R-410A. R-410A is safe for the ozone layer, but it has a global warming potential of 2088, meaning it is over 2,000 times more potent than carbon dioxide at trapping heat. So the EPA decided to phase it out and replace it with lower impact alternatives. The EPA finalized its technology transitions rule in October 2023, which set a GWP threshold of 700 for new residential AC equipment. R-410A is safe for the ozone layer, but it has a global warming potential of 2088, meaning it is over 2,000 times more potent than carbon dioxide at trapping heat. So the EPA decided to phase it out and replace it with lower impact alternatives. The EPA finalized its technology transitions rule in October 2023, which set a GWP threshold of 700 for new residential AC equipment. Manufacturers spent 2023 and 2024 redesigning product lines around R-454B and R-32, both of which fall well under that threshold. After January 1st, 2025, no new residential split system, air conditioner, or heat pump using R-410A could be manufactured in or imported into the United States. That is the rule. New manufacturing stopped. And here is where the story gets interesting, because what the rule says and what some contractors are telling homeowners are two very different things. R-410A is not banned in 2026. New residential split system equipment using R-410A cannot be manufactured or imported as of January 1st, 2025, but existing inventory can still be sold and installed. More importantly, and this is the sentence I want you to remember, the phase down of harmful greenhouse gases does not require property owners to replace any existing HVAC equipment. The EPA has allowed for the ongoing maintenance of existing systems throughout their useful life. Your system is not illegal. Your refrigerant is not banned. Existing systems can continue to operate and be serviced. R-410. A refrigerant remains legal to purchase and use for service work. So why are contractors telling people otherwise? Because the transition created a pressure point that is genuinely real, and some people in the industry are leaning on it harder than the facts actually support. Here's the pressure point. Three factors stacked on top of each other. The EPA AIM Act ended manufacture of new R-410A residential equipment as of January 1st, 2025. The EPA's annual HFC production allowances are being cut to materially smaller levels each year, and demand for service refrigerant remains high because tens of millions of R-410A systems are still in operation. Industry tracking shows R-410A prices climbed 40 to 60% since the 2025 phase-down. For homeowners getting a recharge from a licensed HVAC contractor, R-410A typically runs $50 to $90 per pound installed in 2026, with most markets clustering around $75 per pound. That's real. The price increase is real, and it's going to keep going. R-410A production allocations will decrease according to the phase-down schedule. 40% reduction by 2029, 80% by 2034 versus the 2011 to 2013 baseline. The big price shock isn't here yet. The bigger one comes in 2029 when the production cap drops by another 30 points in a single step. So the contractor who tells you R-410A is getting more expensive isn't lying. The contractor who tells you that means you have to replace your system right now is using a true fact to sell you something you may not need. And here's the thing that gets lost in all of this. You cannot drop an A2L refrigerant like R-454B or R-32 into an older R-410A system. Next-generation systems feature redesigned electrical components, spark-proof contactors, and integrated leak detection sensors designed specifically for A2L safety standards. R-454B has different loading rates and pressure regulations that require systems designed specifically for its use. So, yes, the new refrigerant and your old system are genuinely incompatible. That part is true. But incompatibility does not mean your system is dead. It means that when your system eventually needs refrigerant, it still uses R-410A, which is still legal, still available, and still serviceable. The scenario that actually forces a replacement is a major refrigerant leak, combined with a system that's already approaching end of life. If your 14-year-old unit loses its charge and the compressor is already weak, the repair math probably doesn't work. But that is a totally different situation from a healthy 6-year-old system with a small, fixable leak. The contractor who treats those two situations identically is not doing math. He's doing sales. So let's talk about what a legitimate repair looks like versus what a replacement pitch looks like, because the difference is usually visible in the first 5 minutes of the conversation. A legitimate technician finds a leak, fixes the leak, and recharges the system with R-410A. That's it. The repair might cost a few $100s in labor plus the refrigerant. For a typical residential AC recharge using 2 to 4 pounds of R-410A, homeowners can expect to pay $100 to $400 in total. Even on the high end, that is not a number that justifies a $12,000 to $15,000 system replacement on a unit that's otherwise running well. The key word there is otherwise. If your system has a history of repeated leaks, corroded coils, or a compressor that's already been repaired once, that changes the calculation. But a single refrigerant loss on a midlife system is a repair, not a death sentence. Here's what the replacement pitch usually sounds like. The technician arrives, finds low refrigerant, and before he's even looked for the source of the leak, he's telling you that R-410A is basically banned, your system can't be upgraded to the new refrigerant, and you're better off just replacing everything now while he has availability on a new unit. Sometimes he'll quote you a refrigerant recharge price that sounds terrifying on purpose, inflated well above market, to make the replacement look more reasonable by comparison. And then he'll mention that the new system qualifies for a federal tax credit, which is true, but that doesn't mean the replacement is the right financial move. Be honest with yourself here. If a contractor shows up and within 10 minutes has moved from "let me diagnose this" to "let me quote you a new system," that is a red flag. Diagnosis takes time. A real leak search takes time. A technician who skips straight to replacement is not solving your problem. He's solving his commission problem. Here are the questions that change the dynamic immediately. Ask him to find and show you the leak before you discuss any repair or replacement options. A legitimate technician will use electronic leak detection or UV dye to locate the source. If he can't or won't show you where the refrigerant is going, you don't have enough information to make any decision yet. Ask for the repair cost, assuming the leak is fixed and the system is recharged. Get that number in writing. Then you can compare it against a replacement quote and do the actual math. If a major repair costs more than half the price of a new system and your unit is past 10 years old, replacement usually wins. That's a reasonable rule of thumb. But a leak repair on a 7-year-old system almost never hits that threshold. Ask specifically whether R-410A is still available for service work. The correct answer is yes. The EPA AIM Act prohibited the manufacture and import of new R-410A Residential A/C equipment starting January 1, 2025, but service refrigerant remains legal and is still being produced and reclaimed. You can recharge an existing R-410A system in 2026 without issue. It's just more expensive than it used to be. If a contractor tells you otherwise, he is either misinformed or he is counting on you not to know the difference. Ask whether he did a manual J-load calculation for the replacement system he's quoting. This is a formal calculation that accounts for your home's square footage, insulation, window count, and orientation to determine the right system size. If he sized the replacement by looking at your current unit's tonnage and matching it, that is not a calculation. An oversized system short cycles. It cools the house too fast, shuts off before it removes humidity, and destroys the compressor in half the time. A contractor who skips the load calculation is not engineering your comfort. He's guessing and charging you for it. And here's the one I want you to save for last, because the answer will tell you almost everything. Ask him, what is the actual condition of my compressor and coils? A compressor that's running at spec, drawing the right amperage, with no oil fouling and clean coils, is a compressor that has years of life left. If he can't answer that question with specifics, measurements, not opinions, he hasn't actually assessed your system. He's assessed your wallet. Now, I want to be clear about something because this video isn't an argument that replacement is always a scam. It isn't. If the unit is in poor condition, has a high leak rate, or is approaching a major component replacement decision, the economic case for early replacement with an R-454B unit is typically strong. The new systems are genuinely better in some measurable ways. New A2L systems using R-454B or R-32 are running 15 to 30% more expensive than their R-410A predecessors due to refrigerant cost and added A2L safety components. So the upfront number is higher, but the long-term refrigerant cost picture is more stable. If your system is 12 to 15 years old, has had multiple repairs, and the compressor is showing wear, a contractor recommending replacement isn't scamming you. He might actually be right. The problem is that conversation is being applied to systems that don't fit that profile. A 5-year-old system that's lost some refrigerant does not fit that profile. A system that's been maintained, has clean coils, and has no compressor history does not fit that profile. The refrigerant transition is a real thing with real cost implications, but it is not a cliff that every existing R-410A system just fell off of. R-410A will get more expensive over time. The transition is happening. It's just not happening via a hard installation ban. That gives you time. Use it to make a decision based on your system's actual condition, not a contractor's urgency. If you found this useful, drop a comment below. Specifically, tell me what a contractor has told you about the refrigerant transition, because I want to know what's being said out in the field. The patterns in those comments are going to shape the next video in this series, which goes deeper into the coil corrosion problem and why some systems are leaking refrigerant in the first place after only 3 or 4 years. That video is already up. It's linked right here. And if you've ever had a technician tell you your coil failure is just normal now, you need to watch it. Here's what changed from the beginning of this video to right now. You came in knowing that something felt off about the replacement pitch. Now you know exactly why it felt off, what the regulation actually says, and the 4 questions that will cut through the sales pressure in under 5 minutes. The phase down is real. The price increases are real. The urgency to replace a working midlife system is manufactured. And now you have the information to tell the difference.